Welcome to another episode of This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast. A comfortable, safe space for you and I to discuss sports, politics, social issues, and religion. Of course, we will take it all very seriously, but not too seriously. On the agenda for this week, I'm going to eliminate any chance that I will ever work for Facebook. We will discuss the U.S. men's national team in soccer, the ongoing Aaron Rodgers saga, and the undertaking of one of the most difficult things I have ever had to do in my entire life. Sit through an entire episode of The Bachelorette. Let the games begin.
Act 1, we must evolve from social proof, because it is bullshit. Part 2, the Facebook paradigm.
A listener reached out to me in response to my segment on social proof and one Frank Luntz from last week, commenting on Facebook and the social dilemma. If you have not seen The Social Dilemma, it is a documentary, I believe from 2020, on Netflix about not only Facebook, but social media, social networking. And the gist of it, as you may imagine, is that the impact of social networking on human interaction, on human thought, on the way we develop our understanding of the world around us is having a more destructive effect than a constructive effect. For all intents and purposes, a bunch of people who helped create the algorithms, who helped create the apps, who helped create the networking infrastructure, turn around and talk about how damaging their creations are on not only the present, but very likely on the future of social networks and social networking on human beings. The documentary does speak to social proof and how these apps, these social networking platforms are geared towards, have algorithms to judge what you like and what you don't like in order to continue to feed you more of what you like in order to keep you engaged on the platform. While that is one aspect of social proof that needs to be thoroughly discussed, I'm not going to discuss it here because, frankly, anything that I would say would be better said by people much smarter than me appearing in the Social Dilemma documentary. What I want to speak to is Facebook specifically, and I want to speak to what I believe is the elephant in the room when it comes to Facebook, how it developed, how it grew into the giant that it did, and what effect that has had on the concept of social proof. In discussing the topic of Facebook and social proof, I want to touch on two key points in the history of Facebook. These two key points in the history of this company will help illustrate how using social proof turned Facebook into the social media giant it is today. Now understand, this is not a publicly or commonly or even widely held view. This is my hypothesis. You could even call it somewhat of a conspiracy theory in the sense that Facebook has never wanted to fully come to terms with what it did, why it did it, and when it did it in order to become the company that it is today. Why? Because from the word go, Facebook has always leveraged its users' data. Facebook's first source of revenue was its users' data. Let's walk down memory lane. I think it will become clearly evident to you, dear listener, that this is the case. So what is that first key event in the history of Facebook? 2012, Facebook decides to go public. Do you remember that time? All of the hype, all of the build up to that IPO, the massive valuation of the company, the price targets for the stock, the grandiose speculation about the company's future. But what happened? Amidst all that hype, a few key, powerful, and savvy investors, they asked a very simple question. How does this company make money? Where is the value driver? Where are the revenue streams? User popularity alone is not going to create a billion-dollar company. Frankly, Facebook had no good answers to that question. And if you recall, after the IPO, within, I believe, 10 days, 2 weeks, the stock plummeted. The market realized what those savvy investors did. This company is a black box. We don't know how it's going to make money. It doesn't know how it's going to make money. So you have the principals at Facebook, Zuckerberg in particular, sitting around a table going, how the hell are we going to appease the market? How the hell are we going to turn this into a money-making, profit-driven business instead of a social media app, a networking club? What do we have now of value? We have all of these people's data. We have all of this particular data, not simply names and places. We have years and years of likes and dislikes, of political leanings, of social leanings, and, of particular import, commercial interests. Yet how do we go to all of these different businesses, to all of these different social interests, political interests, and say, give us money to reach these users? Simply saying, give us money and we'll push out ads will not influence an advertiser. They want specific data on what the reach is, who is actually seeing these ads, how long are they spending time on the ads, how often is the ad going to be run. And by way of an ad that you get on your phone, that you get on your tablet, that you get on your computer, they want to see how many people will click on that ad and then consume goods or services. Facebook, frankly, had not quite figured that out. Now let's go to the second key point in the history of Facebook. Reflecting still on what we just discussed, how is this company going to make money? How are we going to be able to turn all of this user data into something profitable? Let's look at the second key point in the company's history. In 2013, a company called Cambridge Analytica develops an app on Facebook that, for all intents and purposes, is monitoring its users. All of the data collected by this app is being assimilated for political advertising. Now, what do we know about this scandal from the people that have come out and talked about it? When this relationship was created, Facebook had a specific set of engineers and client liaison representatives for Cambridge Analytica. These Facebook employees helped provide access to data, helped provide access to the algorithms, the infrastructure that Facebook was using. The overtone of this entire story has always been Cambridge Analytica partners with Facebook. They use this data for political purposes. Facebook doesn't tell its users. Both parties are bad. Cambridge Analytica bad for using an app to track, store, manipulate user data for political purposes. Facebook bad for allowing a company to do this without notifying its users. But look at this relationship on its face in light of the fact that not 1 year earlier, Facebook had seen its IPO and then its publicly traded stock fall flat on its face. For what? For what reason? Because they can't monetize this massive user database that they have. Well, here comes a third party that develops an app in partnership with Facebook. This app asks specific targeted questions of its users in order to collect certain data in order to then turn around and try to change and or manipulate public opinion on political issues and political candidates. 5 years later, Mark Zuckerberg is testifying before Congress and is asked directly numerous times, how does Facebook make its money? How does Facebook make its money? And what does he say? Ads. We sell ads. Now, in 2018, Facebook may make its money selling ads. But look at the history. Put it into context. Think critically, not cynically, dear listener. What was Facebook doing in 2012? They were going public. The stock falls on its face because they can't communicate to the marketplace how they're going to actually monetize a social media platform. A year later, they've partnered with a third party who's developed an app and an algorithm on how to ask directed, targeted questions at users in order to collect certain types of data to do what? To help shape opinions. Let's put this all together. And let's do so within the well-understood context of social proof. Social proof. People are going to develop their own opinions based on what they think everyone else believes about an issue, about a public figure, about, in particular, a product or a company and its branding. Facebook goes public and it just has this raw data. It has data from millions of users collected over years and years. But it can't quite put together how to get an advertiser's message in front of the right population of people within that user base. A third party approaches Facebook and says, look, we've got this idea. We've got this algorithm. We want to put it in an app that's going to present on your platform as something fun, as something that's going to help increase the user's social visibility. We're going to collect that data, and then based on the algorithms that we have developed, we want to then target certain types of people, certain geographic areas, certain types of users. And Facebook says, hell yeah, hell yeah. But let's be clear. We're like the Chinese government in this relationship. You can have access to our platform. You can have access to our users. But that algorithm, you see, we'll be sharing that. At this point in the story, I hope that hamster wheel in your head is spinning. I hope it's spinning around so violently and so fast that the noise in your head is deafening. I don't believe for a second that Cambridge Analytica was the only company that had developed an algorithm that partnered with Facebook to collect data on users and then turn around and to these same population of users began targeting them to change public opinion. What Facebook saw at that point is what you should be seeing right now. Facebook had the user base. They had their data. They needed to be able to get certain types of advertisements in front of certain types of users so that advertisers would come to them and say, yes, I'm going to pay you lots of money to get my product, my service, my brand in front of these users. Facebook says, not only can we do that, but we can present a platform, a suite of services to you to not only get in front of the right consumer, but to change public opinion about your product, your service, your brand within different populations of users. We can use the concept of social proof to help promote anything that you want to promote to any group of users that we have. You want to promote to teens in the South? We can do that. You want to promote to the elderly in the Northwest? We can do that. Is your brand suffering in urban areas around the United States? Is your brand suffering in urban areas around Europe? We can create a platform, a suite of services, of targeted advertisements to help change public opinion about this company, this brand in urban areas in these geographic locations. By employing the concept of social proof, Facebook can now reach out to these targeted audiences and present them advertisements and articles that look like they're news, but in fact are nothing more than promotional materials, and lead these individual targeted audiences with the impression that their contemporaries feel a certain way about a brand, a product, a service, a social issue, a political issue, a political candidate. We are crippled by the effect of it. We are susceptible to forming opinions consistent with our contemporaries based on the concept of social proof. And because Facebook is a black box in many ways to us, we can't verify whether or not the information presented to us as representing our contemporaries' impressions, opinions, beliefs. We can't confirm whether or not this is true. It's true because Facebook tells us it's true. Just look at it, dear listener. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I don't care if you think it's ethical. I don't care if you think it's legal. You have to see it from a macro perspective. Take yourself outside of yourself and look at it from a bird's eye view. It's brilliant. Facebook looks at this and says, these people are all using a platform whereby just to have this interconnectedness, they'll volunteer anything about themselves. Anything. We can partner with third parties and we can help develop algorithms whereby not only will they tell us anything, they'll tell us exactly how to market to them in order to change their own opinions. All we have to do is identify what element of social proof they need to see in order to go along with the crowd. You know, here at Guess, we really want to promote our product to a younger, more urban market. Oh, so you want to market to Black and Hispanic teens in urban areas? Yes, we do. Well, we can come up with a specific ad campaign that's going to look generalized, but we can target those specific demographics in order to not only increase sales and revenue, but brand awareness amongst Black and Hispanic urban teens. You see these companies invest the money, they see the results, they start investing more and more money. Facebook got it figured out. Wow, more college-educated single mothers in the state of Texas are now supporting Ted Cruz. Maybe Ted Cruz isn't such a bad guy. Wow, did you know that over 80% of the second-generation people in London favor Brexit? Really? Wow, maybe I should rethink my opinions on Brexit. Now, were any of these things true? No! No, it was using the concept of social proof to specifically target people with an ad that looked personalized to them. Personalized to them, but had been manufactured to target a population of people like them in order to change their opinions. There was no truth. There was no reality. The only truth, the only reality was what was popping up on these people's phones, on our phones. What was popping up on these people's tablets, on our tablets. What was popping up on these people's computers, on our computers. These ads, these articles that had the feel of individualism, like it was being sent to me because I'm me, but was a sophisticated, calculated, targeted campaign based on the concept of social proof. This allowed Facebook to go from a company that couldn't articulate in any meaningful way how it was going to make money and saw its stock fall on its ass to 18 months later start realizing the vision of $1 billion company. I'm sure everyone that's listening to this podcast and anyone that might ever listen to this podcast has heard some of the statistics specific to Facebook. 2 out of 3 people now get their news from Facebook. 4 out of 5 people under the age of probably 40 are being introduced to many of the new products that they consume via ads on Facebook or Instagram. Think about that, dear listener. Based on the history as I have just set it forth, how can we trust anything that we get from Facebook? How can we trust anything that we get from Instagram? Do any of us really believe that Facebook has somehow eliminated or stopped using the algorithms that it developed in partnership with companies like Cambridge Analytica? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Facebook had one thing of value in 2012, and it went out and found a way to leverage it for money, not only in a way where it could make money in the short term, but where it could use the algorithms, the information that it was developing with these third-party partners, and make Facebook a billion-dollar company. And it all centered on the concept of social proof. I don't want to regulate Facebook at all. I don't think there needs to be any sort of federal intervention. I don't think there needs to be any sort of regulation or limitation. Why? Because as I said last week, Facebook is relying on social proof. Yes, having all of this user data is dangerous. Having all of this user data can be bad. But why? Why is it bad? It's bad because that data can then be used to help manipulate opinion. Manipulate opinion how? Based on the concept of social proof. I create my understanding of the world. I develop my opinions specific to commercial interests, to political interests, to social interests. How? Based on the thoughts and the opinions of those around me. We have to evolve out of social proof. Don't look at Facebook, don't look at Instagram, don't look at Twitter as these dangerous, monolithic Goliaths that somehow pose a threat to human integrity, to human interaction, to the human existence. Look at them as an opportunity, as a spotlight on us, on the way that we think, on the way that we develop our thoughts and opinions on the world around us. These things are nothing more than a mirror showing us that we're still not the individuals that we thought we were, that we are so vulnerable to following the crowd. I'd love to see in 50 years that the number of users on Facebook, on Instagram, on all of the new social media platforms that will develop and exist, that they're in the hundreds of millions, if not 2, 3, 4 billion. And what I want after that is that those hundreds of million, that 2, 3, 4 billion, see these social media platforms as nothing more than a 21st or a 22nd century telephone. They are platforms that they use to do nothing more than connect with other people. They know that every single ad, that every single article is targeted, manipulated bullshit. So much so that the efficacy of advertising, of trying to push content on those social media platforms, loses its value. How many times are we going to be fooled by the carnival barker telling us that the goat with a horn glued to its head is a unicorn? Once you find out that that carnival barker is full of shit, you may still go to the circus. You can enjoy the elephants and the clowns. Look at those trapeze artists. Isn't that amazing? But when it comes time to trot out the goat with the horn glued to its head, meh, you're not buying. Over the course of time, the carnival barker doesn't advertise for the goat with the horn glued to its head. Perhaps it's wishful thinking, but I see nothing that's going to help us evolve away from the constraints, the cage that is social proof, than the mirror into ourselves, into our souls that is social media. Think for yourselves, kids. Doing it any other way just allows somebody else to make money off of your thoughts.
Act 2 Sports.
USA, USA, USA. The United States of America men's soccer team won a soccer tournament. Your first thought is, what kind of bullshit tournament was this that was created to allow them to claim a trophy? Well, dear listener, it was not a bullshit tournament created solely so the United States men's soccer team could claim a trophy. It was, in fact, a tournament that was long overdue in the North American and Central American and Caribbean national teams, and the United States of America took the inaugural trophy. Is this a big deal? Yes, it is. First and foremost, because this is a men's national team that lost to Trinidad and Tobago 3-4 years ago, which disqualified the men's national team from going to the World Cup. United States men's national soccer team, bad. So turning around and winning an international competition, well, that's somewhat of an achievement. Who did they play in the championship? They played Mexico, the arch nemesis of the men's national team. Beating Mexico to claim a trophy. That's a pretty big deal. So what about the contest? Did they go out and show domination in contrast to the terrible play that they've had against other North American Central American, Caribbean soccer teams? Nope. They came out in the first 2 minutes and shit the bed. Mexican forwards push the ball into the defensive zone. Defensive player gets ball, kicks ball directly to Mexican forward. Mexican forward goes in and scores. Less than 2 minutes in, down 1-0. At this point, I shouted an expletive and I said, well, had a good run getting here. Mexico's going to stomp the kids. There will be a couple of weeks of teeth gnashing and of finger pointing, and it'll all repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat again. But that is not what happened. The kids came through. And the cherry on top was that Mexico had a chance, with practically no time left, to take a penalty kick to tie the game so that the entire contest went to penalty kicks. Mexican player kickball. U.S. goalie dives, saves, U.S. wins. For once, the teeth gnashing, the finger pointing, will be on the other side of the coin. For the first time in a long time, I am actually hopeful that the U.S. men's national team is going to develop into an international problem for some of the world's best teams. Still have a ways to go. Still have to clean up a lot of stupid playing, a lot of stupid mistakes. But these kids show heart, they don't quit, and on occasion, as the British would say, they show quality. In conclusion, USA, USA, USA.
Act 3. The Aaron Rodgers holdout fills my penis full of blood.
As I've told you numerous times, dear listener, I divorced the NFL team that I had been a fan of for decades, and I don't regret it whatsoever. That team had, for decades, been tormented by one Green Bay Packers. And although Packers fan may lament their lack of success over the last 2, 3, 5 years in the playoffs, their inability to reach the Super Bowl, the Packers have been blessed with generational quarterbacks, not once, not twice, but thrice. They had themselves a Bart Starr. They had themselves a Brett Favre. And they have themselves an Aaron Rodgers. This has made Packers fan a smug douchebag. So nothing got me more excited and got my penis more erect than to see that Aaron Rodgers was holding out to force a trade from Green Bay. Now, the reasonable amongst you, the level-headed, might say, well, why do you care? If you divorced the nemesis, what does it matter about the success or failure, the trials and or tribulations of this team? That is an interesting question. It's basically like if you were married to someone and you just happen to hate their sister, and then you get divorced from that person. Do you stop hating their sister? Probably not. You may over time become indifferent to that person, but that person isn't any less obnoxious, isn't any less a douchebag because of your marital status. So, in reflection on the tiff between one Aaron Rodgers and one Green Bay Packers, I hearken back to the words of Henry Kissinger when asked about the Iran-Iraq war. It's a pity both sides can't lose.
Act 4. This may be the worst decision I ever make.
In more than one episode of this podcast, I have made disparaging remarks about The Bachelor. That's right. Don't like it, never watched it, have nothing good to say about it. I have been challenged by more than one listener for having this position. One savvy listener commented that how could I not like something having never tried it in any capacity? You see, I have never watched not only a season of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, I have not watched an entire episode of any of the seasons of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. The most I have ever watched is from one commercial segment to another commercial segment. That was enough. That did it. I don't need to eat an entire shit sandwich to know I don't like shit sandwich. I only need to take a bite. But, against my better judgment, I have made a pledge. I am going to watch every episode of The Bachelorette that airs on the television. I will then be hosting a room on the app Clubhouse with a co-host, Bethany Hendricks, to break down the episodes, to discuss the popularity of the show, and to discuss its general themes. You may say, who is this Bethany Hendricks? She's a wife. She's a mother. She has started a second career in clinical psychology, no less, and is approaching the stage where she is going to begin seeing patients. And yet, for some only God knows why reason, she loves The Bachelor. She loves The Bachelorette. Bethany will be the quieting yin to my raging yang in discussing said program. Please come visit us on Clubhouse, and if we get as many people in our Clubhouse room as I do getting listeners to this podcast, we will very quickly be wrapping up the Clubhouse room and will likely have a breakdown, an analysis, a recap on this very podcast. I hope to contain the darker elements of my nature in not only watching, but recapping and discussing The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. This is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast.